Please get your questions in now. We'd like to go past 12:30 today. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Because other than that, we'll I don't know what we'll do. Because I have no inclination to sing and dance today. See, if you look at that window, I don't know if you can see it, but it is this gross slush and sleet falling from the sky.
All right, I have to show you something before we get started. I don't know if you'll be able to see this really. I'm going to share it from my phone, but this was my son this morning. Today's his 10th birthday. Let's see, his 10th birthday.
Happy birthday.
This is him from this morning outside our house in shorts, short sleeve shirt.
Great.
It was chilly out there. Probably in the 40s. It's he wanted a jacket on, but we were just taking a quick picture for his birthday. I think Ron lives in San Diego also. He said high 70s today. I think so. I'm out in Santee now, and it might be like 80 degrees today. I had to move east.
I don't know if I have a weather app on my phone that's going to show me anything good. Let's see.
At least it's not so cold in Florida that the iguanas were falling out of the trees because they were freezing.
30. Okay, so
34.
So just so you know,
but I get a flower picture. So.
I think it's tomorrow night or tonight. It's supposed to get down in the 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're going to get some more falling iguanas, and hopefully somebody will just run them over with their cars or something like that. Just get rid of them.
All right.
I'm hoping for a nice long cold snap that would get rid of some of the pythons in the Everglades, because they're just there's nothing stopping those things. They're just destroying all sorts of ecosystems, which is crazy.
Or hopefully a cold snap would also get rid of some of the people in Florida.
Get rid of the old people, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Y'all retire down there because it's warm.
Hopefully it'll just make some popsicles out of people. Those Florida men who sleep outside drunk or bath salting or whatever it is.
No, we don't want to see. We only want to get rid of the snowbirds that come down here. They bring a lot of economy, and they're friendly. They bring up the nice level of Miami up a notch. All those Canadians. Otherwise, we'll just be shooting each other. And
I don't think it's Canadians. I'm pretty sure it's all people from New York.
Well, y'all can go to Fort Lauderdale and get out of Miami. So
I'm not going anywhere near Florida. You can't get me past that panhandle, buddy.
If you were, you would become the epitome of Florida man.
I would. I'm like genetically inclined to be Florida man. It's immediate disaster waiting to happen. All right. It is apparently 12:17. I got a haircut yesterday, so I feel extra handsome. I got distracted by my stubble. Sorry. Should probably answer some questions. I don't know. Do you want me to read? How do you want to do this? Who wants to do that?
It's you.
I'll read them. Okay. My nice voice going across the airwaves. I'll start with this first question. Hi, we have Idera SQL Safe, but it failed for very big DBs when using object level restore. Redgate has expired this functionality recently. Can you please suggest other third-party tools to achieve object level restore? I like Quest Lightspeed.
Yeah,
Quest Lightspeed will do it.
I think that's like the number one. Yeah, and I think that's the number one reason, one of the number two reasons that people like that product. Object level restores, and then the log shipping is better with it.
Yeah. Also, like it's super cool to they have the log reader built in, so you can read through your transaction logs and see which transactions did which bad things. So not only can you restore a particular object, but you can restore that object to the point in time right up to when something went awful. So that's a really good tool. That's that's everything that I'd want. Because I'm going to level with you guys. I hate doing restores. I hate it. It's the worst.
It's boring.
Why were you ever in a DBA if you didn't want to do backups and restores? That's the whole job.
I just set it and forget it.
Because what I wanted was SA access, so I could do all the cool stuff I wanted to do with perf tuning. I didn't actually want to do backups and restore. That's boring as hell. There's just no glory in that. No one is ever high five, dude, that was a great backup you did.
It should have been a dev DBA or just a database developer.
You have an idea how hard it is to get SA when you're that guy? It's impossible. No one gives that guy SA.
Because I never wanted SA. That's the furthest thing that I want. I've dropped too many tables in production.
That's where all the good trace flags are with SA. Trace flags, do stuff. Get crazy. Let's see. This one will go right to Tara on, even though limited values of quality answers will occur. Best way to do SQL Server patching with merge replication. What order should I patch my servers in?
I really don't. I don't have any experience with merge replication, but we've had some clients that are using it. As far as replication in general, though, there is no order. It doesn't really matter, and I've even patched both. Or all three, I mean, at the same time, just because I want to get patching over with. Because if the publisher's down, the data's not flowing anyway, so might as well also do the subscriber and distributor at the same time. I don't really see that there needs to be any kind of one server at a time. Now, I care about if it's an availability group, failover cluster instance. I want to make sure that if the downtime's like 30 seconds, and I'm bringing up the instance as quick as possible. That I pay attention to, but not as far as the replication instances go.
Sounds good to me. Wes asks, can you string multiple CTEs together? And I have to, Wes, I know, I can tell that you have the internet. So I'm pretty sure.
No, don't.
That the documentation is available to you. But since I'm not entirely sure, what I'll do is I'll show you how to do it. And I'll open up Management Studio and we'll get cracking on this conundrum. Can we string multiple CTEs together? I should have done this when I saw it come, but I was dumb. We wait for this. Let's see. There's another question. Do you have any reasons why someone should not or need not do meltdown or Spectre patching? Jeez. Personal question.
I'm just glad I'm not a production DBA for this. Is the companies I've worked for would have been all over this, especially when I worked at Qualcomm, security team and, patching monthly. We had this whole process, and I can't even imagine being a production DBA with that going on, especially since, there's issues with performance because of it. Yeah.
So my advice would be if you're not virtualized, like if you're running on bare metal and you're not using CLR, and this is the advice from Microsoft. If you're on bare metal and you're either not using CLR or all the CLR is written by people in-house who you trust, then you're not really all that vulnerable to meltdown or Spectre. And I'm just going to say anecdotally, I did patch everything for that. Some of my patches were against my will. Microsoft installed them while I was asleep, and then I couldn't do anything about it. They even restarted everything. And I'm just anecdotally, creating indexes has been taking a lot longer.
Really?
like when I go to create, usually I can create indexes on the post table in about 30 to 45 seconds on my nice computer. And now it's taking a minute and a half, 2 minutes to do some of these. And I was like, I did a presentation on 2017 at the New York user group last week. And I had this great spill demo that when I left my house with the laptop, and but right before I left, I tested everything, and everything worked great. And I shut down my laptop. And when I restarted it at the user group, patches got installed. And that all of a sudden just wouldn't finish.
Oh, wow.
It just stopped. I was in high performance power mode. My laptop was plugged in. The stuff was in memory already from doing other stuff. It did a count query to make sure that what I wanted would be in memory, and it just failed completely. It ran for 2.5, 3 minutes. I was sitting there staring at it this took 15 seconds before. Oh, man. Anyway, Wes had this question. Can you string CTEs together? And yes, Wes, you can string CTEs together all day. And we will do CTE1 and I'll pretend that I remember all the syntax off the top of my head. And we'll just do the select top one from users. We should probably pick a column though, right? One ID from users. And depending on what you want to do, you can just drop that down a line to make it a little bit more clear. Use a comma, advanced comma technology. Mm-hmm. You can do CTE2, CTEE.
Jesus, why you're not allowed to type.
I know. This is why I do all my typing before I leave the house. Usually. Oh, look at this. I'm bumbling this badly.
How much alcohol has he had today?
Not enough. Because usually when there's a little booze in me, I'm flying through this stuff. And from this, we can either select star from CTE1, or we could just, forget that, and we could just do select from a completely different table, like posts. and we could do something else there. So you can string CTEs together just using commas and separating the CTE names of the comma, and then you can either select from the prior CTE or do a completely different query in there, and then eventually when you're done you can select nonsense from crap and whatever else you want to do, whatever data you want to get
from
stuff.
CTE crap. That's
yes.
I didn't even know you could do that until last week when I was going through a few things in SP Blitz, and I saw that there was a CTE that had strung 3 things together. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. And the second thing that went through my head was, wow, I bet you Eric did that, because
I'm sorry.
That had an Eric code smell to it.
I'm sorry, man. Which check was it?
I got to look it back up. I've gone over about 20 of them over the past 2 weeks. So
because there's one
merged together.
Or rather, there's like a couple of them in particular that I remember having to do that with, where I was like going through maintenance plan stuff. So like I remember I had to shred the package XML and then do some other stuff, and I just remember having to do that with those, and so that's probably where it is.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where it was, because I think I was bitching to Brent about having not only the stringing the multiple CTEs, but also having the shredding the XML in there as well.
Yeah,
and it's
sorry
like,
about that.
am I asleep? Is this a nightmare? I can't. I mean, it took me a while just to go through like a half a day just to figure out, okay, well, what the hell is, first of all, what the hell are those system tables? And then what the hell is all this XML crap, and how does it all work? Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It happens.
I'll try to make it up to you somehow. I don't know how.
It's not you. It's not you. It's Microsoft.
It is their fault. They did give me the ability to write code that bad, and then stuck all of their maintenance plan package details into almost completely undocumented XML schema.
Hey, it worked, and I was shocked. I'm like, wow.
I'm always surprised when my code works. And, okay, I'm preemptively getting a link for a question that I'm going to ask.
Okay.
Someone named John, someone not named their actual name, is saying that their boss,
John Snow.
Yeah, it is his actual name, is saying that they want to, their boss is buying big servers as part of a big server as part of a consolidation project, and they want to stack instances on this one big server and just have everything live on there and on different instances. And we actually have a post about why you shouldn't instance stack like that, and I'm going to point you to that URL, and then if anyone else wants to chime in and say something else about it, well, go ahead now.
Well, and then also, I mean, you had a client that wanted to put tons of databases on a really beefy server, and even that wasn't going to be recommended because they were all just so different. They weren't the same application. So definitely, this IT leader, I don't know.
Yeah. So whenever people do that, I mean, they really just shoot themselves in the foot, because it's almost impossible to do meaningful performance troubleshooting. And I know that you think you bought your way out of having to do meaningful performance troubleshooting by buying like one big beefy server, but you're going to hit a lot of walls really quickly. Namely, I think the biggest one I see is around CPU scheduling. So like when you license SQL servers by the core, and for each core you get a certain number of threads. I forget what the exact calculation is. It's like number of cores minus 8 times 2 or something like that. It's bizarre. But the bottom line of that is that your thread count doesn't double when you double your core count. Like if you go from 4 cores to 8 cores, you go from like 512 threads to 576 threads. And when you run out of threads, you run out of basically workers for to run your queries, or like perform backups or do any like background synchronization tasks. So you basically, I mean, really, it's just an added strain on the system that's unnecessary. If you're gonna pursue something like that, I would much rather see you virtualize and just have separate VMs for things. So at least then if you had to dig into a problem, or if you wanted to try separating part of your workload off, you'd have a much easier time doing that than you would if you just crammed everything into one big server. It's really hard to move a single instance when you're doing something like that. Anyone else? Anything fun?
No, that was good.
No? All right, cool. I felt okay about that one. I felt like I didn't completely swing and miss on that.
You were the right one to answer it.
Yeah.
foul-tipped a little bit. Foul-tipped into the mitt. We have 5 DBAs in the database team, and we plan to divide up the roles and responsibilities. You have a source for definitions on how DBA teams are typically organized.
So I can answer this since I've been on a lot of database teams. I think
I've always been so lonely.
Lonely, yeah, not me. We had 10 people at my last job and 5 at one of my jobs. So at all of these jobs I've been at, it's been divided by application. So if you've got an application that requires a lot of a person's time, DBA's time, performance tuning, whatever it is, hand-holding with the developers, then assign that to one person, and then maybe they get some smaller applications. So you split up the applications that are using these SQL servers to your 5 DBAs, and just making sure that they don't have too many applications to support. When I say applications, I'm talking about the applications the user is using, and then the DBA supports that SQL server, that database, and provides the help to the developers, and maybe does all the application releases for your maintenance windows and things like that. But it's always been either application based, or when we would have a shared server, then maybe it'd be a shared server assigned to a specific DBA. But as far as responsibilities, no, that's not how it was split up. And I'm talking about almost 20 years of experience on database teams.
Yeah, I mean another kind of common way to do it is so I hear is you actually split things up by responsibility. So you might have your infrastructure DBA who's responsible for the backups and the patching and making sure that HA and DR is working well. And then you might have the more development-oriented person who's monitoring the server for performance issues, tuning queries, tuning indexes, and then the actual developer DBA who's designing tables and writing initial queries and maybe tinkering with .NET type stuff. So I don't know, two pretty approachable ways to split things up. I think that which one you choose is going to depend a lot on the strengths of your team and kind of how they want to take things on. I mean, if someone on your team is dude, I really want to do performance troubleshooting, this is what I'm into, don't be well, congratulations, you inherited this AG, go patch it.
Yeah.
You're gonna only have 4 people on the DBA team pretty soon. No, don't do that. Don't pigeonhole people. I think some of it too might depend on how granular you want them to get with things. If you want them doing performance tuning, clearly you can only set them on so many servers before they kind of lose track of exactly what server does what application does what, and all that other stuff. So good monitoring tool would be pretty necessary for someone following that route of
from a development perspective, I kind of development.
Who?
You heard of development? Exactly. I kind of lean towards the direction where we have a DBA per app, and the reasoning is if I have to explain a problem to one person, and then something else happens a few days later or a week down the road, and now I got somebody else coming in, and now I've got to re-explain all that stuff. I like to have my DBAs involved in my stand-ups and have them involved in all the decisions that are being made about the application, which will affect the database. So if we were able to get that one person or even 2 people, if we're super lucky, into the project team and into the application, I think things run a lot smoother, as opposed to, hey, I've got 5 people, but I'm dealing with Bob today, Mary no other day, and Tim another, and now we've got 3 people doing the same-ish type of thing that everybody needs to be brought up to speed every time.
We had it like that at my last job. We were assigned to agile teams, and then production DBA work, which was not application related at all. So we're not talking about performance tuning production, just production DBA stuff, like looking at alerts, disk space, things like that. That got split up by whoever was on call that week. That person had to take care of patching. If the maintenance window fell on their week, or any kind of disk space alerts, things like that. So because usually the production DBA work isn't as involved as the other stuff, the application type stuff, where you're attending meetings to, get familiar with the application and know what the project timeline is and where you fit in that. But your mileage may vary, of course.
Mm-hmm.
All right. There's a question here from Colin, which is pretty interesting. It's my DBCC checks take a long time. First, congratulations on taking DBCC checks. It's a good step. You're doing a remarkable thing.
You are in the minority of our clients.
you are in a very elite position since you are doing that. But they take a long time, and Colin is getting these messages in the error log saying that I/O requests are taking longer than 15 seconds to complete, and sometimes they're numbering in the tens to hundreds of thousands. What could possibly be done to correct this issue? Anyone?
You can answer it.
Okay. So what I would usually when I see that, CheckDB does a fair amount in TempDB, and usually what we find when people are running into that is that either they have bad disks, they're slow disks behind TempDB, or if they're on a SAN, then they have really crappy pathing from the server to the SAN, and that it's not actually the I/O request. It's not actually like hitting the disk that's taking 15 seconds. It's queuing up all these I/O requests and sending them across this one connection between the server and the SAN, and that's what's slowing things down tremendously. You could try running CheckDB with physical only, and because that skips over a whole bunch of checks, and obviously it's a less thorough check, but it might get you a reduction in those I/O requests. Other than that, you would have to talk to your storage team. Figure out if it's a VM, or if even it's a bare metal server, what kind of path you have between the server and the SAN, and if it's all local storage, and figure out what kind of god-awful garbage bin sale your boss picked those guys up from, because they are not doing you well. That's about all I had to say on that.
And sometimes, when you see the 15-second warnings in the error log, it's going to only be at night. Not always. But when it's only at night, you're having some issues with I/O, but is it impacting your users? So if I/O is fine during the day and it's bad when CheckDB is running, I don't know. A lot of clients would ignore that. It just depends on your workload, and if you're 24/7, like truly 24/7.
Or if there was something like that is causing your checks to run so much longer that they end up in the production day, that's something I might look at as well. Generally, I agree with Tara. If it's not really impacting users, then it's not really something I'd spend a lot of time messing with. All right. Let's see. There is a question from Ron, which I think we're all dreading. Are there any tools to move a local database to Amazon RDS?
Gosh, I don't remember Amazon RDS. Amazon would provide the tools, I would think. I know Azure does. I don't know.
Oh,
yeah, right. Low blow there, Tara.
Well, I'm just saying, out of my knowledge, I know Azure has tools. I just, I don't know what AWS offers.
Yeah, I know that there's a migration tool. I don't know of anyone who's used it or done anything, successful with it. Typically, when people see when people are moving stuff up to RDS, their databases are either really small, so it's not really that big of a concern, or they're like hiring one of those snowball mechanisms to come so they can put data on it and then ship those drives off to Amazon to add.
And also, if you don't have a DBA, it can make sense to use the non-VM solutions in the cloud.
The reference I found, use the Azure tool, but the link is dead. Ron, I'm sorry, I got nothing to do on that. If it's that big of a database, call Amazon about a snowball. If it's not that big, I don't know. Do bulk export and import or something. I don't know. I think you can probably use S3 buckets to stage some files if you wanted to load them in. But
yes. Have you ever put Stack Overflow database on an RDS?
An RDS, no. We have EC2 instances.
Okay, so you got the VMs.
Yeah, that's what our AWS lab is all EC2. I am admittedly not up to date on migrations to either RDS or.
But EC2 is just a backup and restore because it's just it's a VM.
Yeah, exactly. Most of my
interesting thing to do would be, hey, how would we get the Stack Overflow database into AWS?
Can you? Isn't it too big? I don't know what the limitations
are
for size now.
No, it's size-wise, it's fine. The only limitations I know of RDS would be like the number of databases, which is like 30. So usually I would kick against all those pricks to if someone was trying to get me to migrate a database that size up to RDS. I'm like, no, I think I want to do this myself.
Right, and I haven't done any RDS migrations. Everything I've messed with RDS has been greenfield, so sorry.
All right. Am I that? Okay, that is Tom. That is someone named Tom. That is not someone named Torn. Sometimes the M and the RN confuse me. Are there basic guidelines to help you choose between using CTEs and using temp tables? Ooh. You want Bueller's?
Don't you have like a blog article on this topic?
I don't know, maybe.
Something like you've written.
Something stupid. So what I would say is...
I bet he's published more than he's actually put in the draft queue.
Maybe.
Definitely.
So one thing I would say is if you need to reference a common table expression more than once, if you need to join out to it more than once, that's when I would probably want to use a temp table. And I'll give you a quick example of why.
I'm typing again.
Shush you. So select one is X, right? So I have this CTE, and I can select from the CTE. And this works all quite well. Let's turn on query plan so this makes a little bit more sense. So if I run this with query plans turned on, I get this thing where I do a constant scan of that one value once. If I join is C1 and I join CTE as C2 on C1.x equals C2.x, I will get a slightly different query plan. Oh, no, I won't. Never mind. We'll do this differently. Select ID from, this will help it sync in a little better because it's actual tables. Users, and why is that?
X.
Okay, no, it's not. Your mom. ID, and we do this. Well, that's going to be annoying. Let's just do the top one. Let's not waste anyone's time. If I do the select top one here, I will get that back, and I will have two scans of the users table. If I add another join in, and I join CTE as C3, not V3, C3, on C3.ID. Wow, this is just bad. Someone can give me typing lessons. I'm like worse than Richie.
Someone needs Mavis Beacon, like quick.
Badly. Mavis Beacon have a SQL course, I'd be much better off. All of a sudden, my execution plan will have 3 scans of the users table. So for every time I need to go and touch that common table expression again, I'm going to have to re-execute the syntax in there. So if I have to touch that CTE many times, then that's when I'm going to want to look at using a temp table instead, because a temp table is persistent. When you persist data out, you don't have to re-execute that syntax over and over again. And then you can even index the temp table in a way that helps your query rather than relying on base table indexes.
Yeah, and
solve all your
problems. I think when using your temp tables, the code's a lot more readable than using CTEs. A lot of people don't use CTEs very often. I mean, even you stumbled on the syntax just a little bit. But you did pretty good there. I was pretty impressed.
Well, it wasn't stumbling on the syntax. I just have dumb, fat fingers that I can't type with. There's a disconnect about right here where things just get lost in translation.
I could rip out a create table statement, but CTEs I just don't use as frequently as I would a select or select into or an insert into. So I think there's something to be said about, hey, we're only doing this once. It's a temp table. Just go ahead and get it out, because the junior DBA will be able to read it, or even probably the junior dev will be able to read it, as opposed to CTE and then explaining all the intricate reasons why you would use the CTE over a temp table.
Yep, including that, if TempDB is a disaster for you, then adding to the TempDB disaster may not be the best choice. We'll finish up on this question from Hanan, where he asks, my current client, are we answering questions for another consultant? Is that what's going on here? Do you have a consultant asking us this? My current client uses VM backups through VMware and quiesces applications. Would that be suitable for VMs running SQL Server? Thanks.
Yep. As long as it's quiescing, freezing the I/O, taking a snapshot and resuming I/O, that is a valid backup, and it's a good backup, especially when you start end up having really large databases, because backups, native backups can take hours. So if you got like 20 terabytes, a VM snapshot or SAN snapshot
of your life.
Yeah, so that is how you back up large databases.
Yeah, I did write a blog post pretty recently about some of the problems that you can run into with VSS snaps, namely around the amount of time that you are waiting to freeze and thaw I/O for them. We've run into this a whole bunch of times with clients where they've taken VSS snaps, which are not like fundamentally opposed to, but some part of the process is just taking a long time, and we'll see like 30, 60, 90-second pauses where between the I/O being frozen and the I/O being thawed, and that whole time no one can really do anything in the database. And so the database is also kind of frozen. So if you're doing that once at night, who cares? If you're doing that every 15 minutes or every 4 hours during the day, you might want to reconsider that, or at least keep an eye on those the freeze and the thaws, because if you're freezing data for that long during the day, well, all of a sudden you're adding the amount of time that data is frozen onto every query. That is no good.
And it also creates a backlog of work for SQL Server 2, because everything's pending while that's until the I/Os resume. So I had a client that was running them hourly, and it would take like half an hour. It was happening. I forget this. The snapshot was fairly quick. Not great, but fairly quick, and it would take like half an hour before the backlog would finally complete.
Yeah, it would just all the writes would start screaming to get through, and I don't know, clog each other up or keep blocking or something. Anyway, we have miraculously somehow filled another entire session with questions and answers, and I'm amazed, because I had my doubts at first. But it's 12:45. That means it's time to go. Thank you all for joining us, for coming, asking questions, keeping us honest. We will see you next week.
Bye.